"Wow, you look like a monster. Such a ruining of beauty." Suddenly exposed to her scars, those words uttered by someone echoed well throughout the venue. The lady, hiding her face as if frightened and trembling, appeared to be crying, prompting me to instinctively grab her slender wrist. "Let's get out of here. There's no need to stay in a place like this." Her eyes, pleading as she looked at me, were as beautiful as ever. Unable to hide my outrage at those who had hurt her, we left the venue. This situation would rapidly change after that. My name is John. I'm just an ordinary guy with nothing particularly remarkable about me. After graduating from a local public high school, I went to a decent university in the metropolitan area and chose not to return to my hometown for work. I work at a fairly large company as an accountant. I struggle against numbers every day, but except for the busy end-of-month period, I often get to leave on time and have weekend off. There's a branch office in the town where my family lives, so I've thought about eventually moving back. One day my boss told me that I've accumulated too much paid leave and need to use some, so I took the opportunity to go back to my hometown. It felt strange being home outside of the usual holiday seasons. Yet, the familiar air of my childhood home was somewhat soothing, and by the second day, I was relaxed enough to nap on the couch with our family dog, Wooly. Wooly is a white toy poodle, named by my dad because he looks like a sheep. He's an absolute angel and incredibly cute. At one point, my phone pinged with a notification by the social media message. It was from Emily, a childhood friend. "Long time no see. I heard you're back home. Is that true?" A message with a sticker which is cute, popular character tilting its head popped up. Emily lives next door, and we've been childhood friends for ages. But it's not like there's any romantic feeling between us. We're more like siblings. I heard she's working as a journalist for a local newspaper now. Her talent for English and her inquisitive nature still seem to serve her well. Right now, I'm just chilling with Wooly, so bored with nothing to do. It's so unfair that you get to take weekday off. There's a high school reunion tonight at 7. It's just a small gathering with about 20 people. I'll let Joshua, the organizer, know if you're coming. Really? Count me in. Thanks. I replied with a sticker from my favorite basketball comic, and suddenly, I was looking forward to the reunion that evening. The high school I attended was a relaxed academic school in the countryside. Not many went on to prestigious universities in the metropolitan area, with most aiming for the local national university. Those who went to universities in the metropolitan area were either top students, had specific departments they wanted to join, or didn't have the grades for national universities. I was supposed to easily get into a national university, but I got the flu on the day of the common exams and couldn't sit for them. I ended up going to a private university after I recovered. I was devastated at the time, but looking back, I landed a job and enjoyed my 4 years there, so no regrets. But since then, I've been extra cautious about my health. High school was incredibly fun, filled with silly antics. All the guys in my class were great, and at graduation, we were crying like babies. Emily, my childhood friend, was in the same high school and the same class. Even now, when we meet, most of our conversations revolve around those fun high school days. In that class, there was one girl who caught my attention. Her name was Olivia. Her name had a beautiful ring to it, fitting perfectly for such a lovely girl. She was always smiling and adorable, smart, and the star of the volleyball team. She was the embodiment of grace and intelligence, yet so humble that everyone liked her. The thought of her possibly attending the reunion made my heart race a bit. I wonder if everyone has grown up. I don't feel like I've changed much. With a bit of anticipation, I started thinking about what to wear. The reunion held at a bar. I spotted Joshua, the organizer, and went over to say hi. Hey, John. Long time no see. I heard from Emily that you were coming, so I was looking forward to seeing you. Long time no see. Perfect timing. Really appreciate you organizing this, Joshua. Must have been tough, huh? Nah, I just arranged the venue, and everyone's handling their own orders. It's not a big deal, Joshua said, laughing. I've always thought this aspect of him is truly charming. Of course, he's got the looks, the style, and on top of that, he's a high-flying public servant. I wonder why he isn't more popular with girls. He's mentioned sadly that his work is so demanding he hardly has time to date, and even when he does, he struggles to find time to meet up, leading to quick breakups. Despite his high status, he faces his own set of struggles, which somehow gives me undefeatable feeling. Afterward, familiar faces continued to enter the venue one after another. Emily arrived with a girlfriend, and we high-fived, laughing about how long it had been. It's weird, right? Everyone's aged and changed, yet we can still recognize each other. It's mysterious. Well, you haven't changed at all, Emily. Still as petite as ever. Can't help it if I didn't grow taller. You haven't changed much either, John. You're just the epitome of average. You should take a leaf out of Joshua's book. He has always been a looker, hasn't he? We're just not in the same league. The same jokes from the past felt incredibly enjoyable. Even before we started drinking, the nostalgia seemed to raise everyone's spirits, reminding us of our high school days. Those were days filled with laughter and joy, no matter what happened. The atmosphere that brought us back to those times made everything feel even more enjoyable. Suddenly, there was a stir near the entrance. Looking over, I saw two women entering the venue. One of them was Samantha. She was the go-to person in our class, always at the center of everything. Her assertive and sometimes high-handed manner made her a bit difficult for me to deal with. The other girl, hiding her face with long bangs, was unrecognizable at first. As I was wondering who she might be, someone exclaimed, "Isn't that Olivia?" and the murmuring gradually grew louder. Indeed, the girl with the long bangs was Olivia, the beauty of the class. Her once confident posture was now hunched, and her face hidden. Nervous demeanor was far from the Olivia we remembered. On the other hand, Samantha was pulling Olivia along, forcibly integrating her into the mingling groups. "Olivia, what happened? You look like a different person." I hadn't been back home in a long time, so I had no idea what had happened to Olivia. I thought Emily, always in the know, might have some information, but she just shook her head. I heard she was in a traffic accident during university, but it wasn't life-threatening, so I thought she was okay. A traffic accident? Yeah, I heard it was minor injuries, but after that, she changed her WhatsApp and email accounts, so I lost contact with her. I don't know the details. I see. It wasn't like Olivia to change her accounts and cut off contact without telling anyone, but I didn't have any more information. Feeling oddly unsettled, I was left with a lingering sense of discomfort. Cheers. Following Joshua's call, we raised our glasses high. The refreshing fizz of the cold beer passed through my throat, making me exhale with satisfaction. Acting like an old man, are we? We're already in our late 20s. Laughing with the guys around me, I took another hearty swig. The bartender brought more beers to our table, and we continued to drink merrily. Joshua. In a deliberately high voice, Samantha, sitting next to me and Joshua, began to flirt with him. She wore a revealing dress that accentuated her figure and had a confident smile as she wedged herself between Joshua and me. She's not interested in me at all. I wondered what Olivia, who came with Samantha, was doing now. Looking around, I spotted Olivia alone in a corner, not talking to anyone, her head bowed. Samantha's perfume was overpowering, making me feel uncomfortable, so I decided to head over to Olivia. "Olivia, Long time no see. John, it's been a while. I was relieved to see her smile on her lips from behind her long bangs. We made small talk, and I sipped my drink leisurely. Eventually, Emily joined us, and as the three of us chatted, Olivia seemed to become more relaxed and even started to laugh. Hey, help me out here. Sitting next to Emily was Joshua, who had been entangled with Samantha just moments before. Was Samantha always like that? So pushy, it's kind of scary. Scary, she's just a classmate, man. She just keeps pushing without considering how I feel, and I don't know what to do about it. Seeing a handsome guy like Joshua overwhelmed by a girl's advances was funny, and we all laughed even more. Despite his good looks, Joshua seemed to have very little experience with romance and was also quite shy, which apparently made things difficult for him. "Ah, there you are, Joshua." Samantha, apparently having been looking for Joshua, sat down next to him again. She grabbed his arm and leaned in close, making it obvious to everyone that she was targeting him. Trapped between Samantha and Emily, Joshua gave me a troubled look, but there was nothing I could do except offer a helpless expression in return. "Samantha, Joshua seems a bit uncomfortable." Emily's cold comment made Samantha smile triumphantly. "Oh, Joshua didn't say that. You clinging to him like that prevents others from talking to him. John and Olivia haven't seen each other in a long time." Samantha frowned at Emily's words. Then, for some reason, she glared at Olivia and smirked maliciously. "Oh, Olivia, you wanted to talk to Joshua too, despite looking like that?" Saying that, Samantha leaned in and lifted Olivia's bangs. Olivia's bare face was exposed to everyone. Shockingly, there was a large, twisted scar running from her forehead down to her left cheek. "Stop it." Olivia tried to pull away from Samantha, but Samantha wouldn't let go of her hair. Olivia closed her eyes tightly, looking like she was about to cry. Olivia had a hit-and-run accident and ended up with a scar on her face. It's such a pity, isn't it? She had such a cute face. And now it's marred by this ugly scar, and the culprit hasn't been found yet, right? Did you have some grudge against someone? Olivia, you were quite popular, weren't you? Well, not anymore. Samantha's laughter sounded twisted and ugly. Feeling the madness in her eyes, I stepped between Olivia and Samantha, shielding Olivia's face from the crowd. "Samantha, that's really low." "What? I'm just being a good friend by bringing poor, injured Olivia out. Isn't that thoughtful?" "What are you even talking about?" Samantha's words made no sense to me at all. She seemed to think she hadn't done anything wrong, still wearing that twisted smile. "Well, she looks like a monster. It's ruining the beauty." Those words, uttered by someone, echoed loudly in the venue. Olivia, hiding her face and trembling as if scared, seemed to be crying, and I instinctively grabbed her slender wrist. "Let's get out of here. There's no need for us to stay here." Her eyes, pleading as she looked at me, were as beautiful as ever. Without hiding my anger at those who had hurt her, we left the venue. I led Olivia by the hand, walking aimlessly. It was the weekend and the streets were busy, but no one paid us any attention. After walking for about 15 minutes, Olivia quietly called my name, "John." Sorry." I quickly let go of her hand, and through the gap in her bangs, I could see her beautiful eyes. "It's okay, I'm sorry. Were you having fun before? Because of me?" "It's not like that at all. How about we start over, just the two of us?" "Really?" "Of course, let's go. How about that bar over there?" She nodded in agreement to my suggestion. That somehow made me incredibly happy, and my heart leapt with joy. Trying to hide those feelings, I hurried us toward the bar. We were shown to a semi-private booth, and after toasting with beers again, we naturally started talking. During our conversation, Olivia shared the story of her accident. It happened in my second year of university. I was coming back from a part-time job, and it had gotten dark. But I was walking through a residential area on a path I used every day, so I wasn't particularly cautious. Then, a red compact car hit me from behind. The impact was so severe that I lost consciousness before I could even feel the pain. When I woke up, I was in the hospital with bandages wrapped around my face. Seeing the permanent scar after the bandages were removed made me cry countless times. I felt so hopeless, thinking I couldn't go outside with this face, and I ended up shutting myself in for a while. That sounds really tough. Yeah, I still hadn't fully come to terms with it. During that time, Samantha came to visit me. She said it was pitiful and claimed to be my friend. She was genuinely concerned and visited me occasionally. We also kept in touch through WhatsApp. I don't understand why she did what she did today. Olivia looked down again. Her expression was almost entirely hidden by her long bangs. But even so, I could tell she was probably wearing a sad expression right now. Didn't you keep in touch with anyone else? Like Emily, you were pretty close in high school, right? Samantha told me that with a face like this, no one would want to associate with me, and that I would only get hurt. I believed her and thought I had to live hiding away from people as much as possible. But you came to the reunion today. Samantha convinced me, saying it would be fine because she was there, but to be made a spectacle of like that. I couldn't understand why Samantha acted the way she did. It seemed clear to me that there was malice in her actions. That twisted smile of hers was frightening. To be honest, I can see Samantha as a good person you describe. I felt like her true nature was what we saw today. Seeing your scar, I don't think anyone would shun her or dislike her because of it. I'm sure our high school classmates, who know so many good things about you, wouldn't cut ties with you just because of a scar on her face. So, it feels like Samantha was the one pushing you to isolate herself. Could it be? Do you feel something off about Samantha too? Olivia seemed to be deep in thought, looking down. After a while, she looked up as if she had made a decision. I hadn't told anyone, but I saw the face of the hit-and-run driver. What? I didn't know him, but I saw him again unexpectedly later. I couldn't believe it and thought I must be mistaken. What she shared next was astonishing, and I felt strongly that we couldn't leave her accident unresolved with the perpetrator still unknown. And so, I reached out to my two powerful allies. These allies are Joshua and Emily. While Joshua only claims to be a public servant, he is actually a detective with the state police. True, he is a local government employee, but he finds it troublesome to be bombarded with questions when people find out he's a detective. That's why only those close to him know about this. Emily, with her journalist's instincts and network, coupled with her proactive nature, is adept at gathering information and conducting investigations. Also, given her good relationship with Olivia and her helpful nature, I hoped she could offer support, so I decided to share the story with her. I did a bit of digging into Olivia's accident, but the investigation was strangely cut off at a certain point, and I couldn't find out more. Maybe there came under pressure. The meeting place was a restaurant in front of the station. After listening to Olivia's story, I sent her home and then called the two of them. It seemed they were still at the reunion venue, and they hurried over right away. The person Olivia saw with Samantha. You mean the suspect was walking with Samantha? Samantha is known for flaunting her lifestyle, and she's boasted about having a relative who's a member of the national parliament. Which parliament member? From the Democratic Party, Ryan. He's infamous in certain circles for his shady dealings. His popularity is waning, and he barely made a comeback in the last election through proportional representation, but it's doubtful he'll make it next time. That guy, it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to exert pressure. Despite calling the meeting, I found myself sidelined as they rapidly advanced the conversation. I briefly wondered if those two were a good match for each other. Lost in irrelevant thoughts, I was brought back to reality when Emily slammed her hand on the table. "John, are you listening? We're going to commence a plan." While I was zoning out, they had apparently devised a plan. Their confident smiles were reassuring, yet slightly intimidating. Their plan was straightforward. Joshua agreed to reinvestigate the case, while Emily would look into the circumstances at the time and Samantha's social connections. Based on this, they planned to use Samantha's interest in Joshua to call her out and get a confession. Joshua invited Samantha to a dimly lit, stylish bar. He had a microphone in his pocket that was connected to Emily's phone. It could record and pick up voices, a very handy device. Olivia, upon her request, joined Emily and me in a corner seat far from where Joshua and Samantha were, to observe the situation. Joshua and Samantha sat next to each other at the bar counter. The bartender was an acquaintance of Joshua, and he had been briefed beforehand. Joshua's drink was prepared without alcohol. "I'm so happy you invited me, Joshua. I've wanted to talk more with you since the reunion." Joshua, usually shy, was lavishly flattering Samantha. Becoming generous, Samantha laughed in a high-pitched voice, her spirits high. It seemed she was quite drunk. Olivia watched them silently, with intensity. "Speaking of Olivia, have you been in touch with her since then? It was you who brought her to the reunion, right? Talking about another girl here, isn't that a bit tactless? You know John, right? Seems like he's interested in Olivia." Joshua casually brought me up, his face wearing a sly grin, as he questioned Samantha. With his good looks, that smile could easily deceive. To me, it seemed utterly unnatural. "John, oh, that guy, he was protecting Olivia at the reunion, right, I see." Samantha raised her voice disinterestedly, then started fiddling with her hair. Seemingly bored with the topic not being about her, she frowned, clearly displeased. It was shocking to see Olivia's scar. Even though it was planned, Olivia tensed up. Emily rubbed her back, looking at her worriedly. I was watching them to make sure I didn't miss any of her actions or expressions. Right. Poor thing. Such an ugly, big scar. Her life's practically over. Can't even go outside. Wonder what she'll do now. I thought you were close. You sound quite indifferent for someone who came to the reunion together. Well, it's none of my business, but I have to admit, watching a girl who used to be so popular become a shut-in has been quite entertaining. Samantha's face twisted into that same distorted smile. This is her true nature. Utterly twisted and corrupt. That girl, after the accident, she became a bit clingy when I showed her a little kindness. Well, I orchestrated that. I made sure she was isolated from everyone else and then played helpful person. She has no idea I was behind her accident. Samantha laughed heartily, downing her cocktail in one gulp. It was a cocktail that tasted good but had a high alcohol content. Joshua, knowingly offering her drinks, is quite cunning. It seems the strategy to get her drunk and talking is a great success. How did you manage it? Joshua's tone was gentle, but it was an interrogation. He's a master at questioning. Using a mix of soft and hard tactics, he was drawing out information from her. I had a friend help out. Of course, I paid them well for their trouble. It's something only someone who has charm like me could pull off. Amazing, isn't it? First, I filed a stolen vehicle report to hide the car, then had them hit her with it. It was late, so no one was around, and the license plate was hard to see. They just took a little drive afterwards and abandoned the car, since it was the actual owner driving. No other fingerprints would be found. Just had to get my friend to talk to the police, and it was no big deal. Everything was done by others, so I won't get caught. Smart, right? Yeah, really. I've disliked her since high school. Everyone was all about Olivia. But she's nothing special. I'm the superior one, right? Cuter, right? I should have been the only one in the spotlight." As she spoke, Samantha became increasingly agitated. Without the need for a microphone, their voices carried over to us. Samantha was jealous of Olivia. That's why she resorted to such a heinous act. It was just like the prideful Samantha. She couldn't stand the thought that Olivia might be better than her. Is that the reason? Quite selfish, isn't it? Joshua stopped smiling and narrowed his eyes. The soft atmosphere vanished, replaced by a tense one. Faced with Joshua's change, Samantha seemed lost for words. "Samantha, the truth is, I'm this kind of person." As he said that and pulled out a badge from his inner pocket, Samantha's expression grew increasingly stiff and pale. What Joshua produced was a police badge. It was something that proved his identity. "I've recorded our conversation. Would you mind discussing this in more detail? At the police station, of course." Samantha was stunned for a moment but eventually agreed to accompany him, seemingly resigned. Things would clarify everything. It was just when I too had breathed a sigh of relief. Olivia rushed in front of Samantha. "Samantha, I trusted you all this time. It's disappointing." "What? After all your dependency on me? You should just stay hidden away with that ugly scar. Living with such a scar exposed is just shameful." "Even so, I won't give up on my life. I'll struggle through, scarred and betrayed, and won't let things go your way. Stay out of my life from now on. Goodbye." After saying that, Olivia returned to us, standing tall with her back straight as she used to. Olivia, who declared her separation with a loud voice, looked cooler than anyone else, even if the expression she showed us was tearful. "You did well," I said, patting Olivia's head. She then broke down crying. Emily teased me for making Olivia cry. I didn't know what to do. Samantha, escorted by Joshua, left the bar. Having been told goodbye by Olivia, she was dazed and no longer violent. After the inquiry, Samantha admitted to all her crimes, and the man who executed the plan was arrested. The congressman, Ryan, fell from grace due to Emily's expose. Years later, the case was resolved. Olivia cut her bangs short afterward. Despite the painful scar, her expression regained its brightness, and she smiled charmingly. Joshua knew a skilled plastic surgeon to introduce her. Determined to try various skin treatments, she was optimistic, even if the scar didn't disappear completely. I sincerely hope her efforts pay off. Olivia and I are in touch now. After returning to my city from vacation, I found myself wanting to see her. I decided to request a transfer to the branch office at hometown. Until then, I want to deepen our friendship through calls and SNS. After a while, I received a message from Emily. Surprisingly, she had started dating Joshua. It seems they hit it off after that incident and went out for drinks a few times, which led to them becoming a couple. Despite their busy careers, they're making it work. Olivia and I often talk about them. Olivia and Emily have rekindled their friendship, going out together often. Emily looks truly happy, and I'm a bit envious, Olivia mentioned. Charmed by Olivia's lively voice, I couldn't help but blurt out, "Hey, should we start dating too?" I could sense her catching her breath on the other end of the line, and I broke out in a cold sweat for fear that she would reject me. However, the voice that came through was cheerful, instantly lifting my spirits. "Yes, I'd like that. Hope we'll keep our relationship for long." The fact that we were only talking on the phone was frustrating. I found myself wanting to see her right away. Her cheerful voice made me happy. Her laughter made me happy. I knew then that I wanted to cherish and protect her, this precious person to me, forever. You're not wanted here, so get lost already." Alex, my boss, said this with a sneering grin. Today was the day of the company trip. Alex was supposed to hand out the tickets at the airport, our meeting place. Yet, on the day itself, suddenly there was no ticket for me. It wasn't a mistake in the arrangement. It seems my ticket was deliberately not prepared. All the other employees had gone to the boarding gate, leaving just me and Alex. Alex seemed to enjoy watching me struggle without a ticket. I had been looking forward to this for over a month, and this treatment was just too cruel. "You weren't worth the ticket, so I did you a favor by not getting one." Wait a minute, you're saying I'm left behind by myself? Rather, you should be grateful that you can see me off. In this situation, I wonder where the element of gratitude towards him could possibly be. Alex, as if to say my confusion was the greatest entertainment in the world, showed a brimming smile. It was incredibly infuriating. "That's how it is, so I'm off to enjoy France. See you." "Alex, wait a minute." Ignoring my call, Alex disappeared towards the boarding gate. I was the only one left at the meeting place. I never imagined I would be harassed even on a company trip. No, perhaps it's because my poor thinking. Alex is a man who do anything mean when it comes to making me feel bad. I should have anticipated something like this could happen. I regretted the poorness of my ability to predict. I can't just give up and go home. Actually, I had an important matter to attend to in France. I cannot give up what I need to do because of the interference of such a vulgar person. I immediately started to take action. I refused to let this be the end of it. My heart was burning for revenge against Alex. My name is Brian, a 29-year-old office worker. It's been about half a year since I transferred to this company. To say it myself, I have a serious attitude towards work. I never compromise on the tasks I take on. If I just finish it off thinking this is good enough, I can't be at peace. I'm not a perfectionist, but there isn't a single job I finish without being satisfied with myself. In that manner, I spent my days working hard on the tasks at hand. In today's world, my serious attitude seems rare, and it seemed to inspire the other employees to get motivated. They accepted me right away and were actively cooperative in work. It was a grateful situation. To meet the expectations around me, I worked even harder. There's a senior who says the workplace has become lively since I joined. When someone says that, it just makes me even more motivated. At first glance, it might seem like a very fortunate work environment. However, there was one exception. My boss, Alex. Alex is someone who quickly wants to look down on people who seem superior. It's common to look down on people who are worse off, but Alex was the opposite. It was the so-called jealousy. His pride was unnecessarily high, and he couldn't stand anyone being better than him. I could tolerate it if Alex simply didn't like me deep down, as long as it was just to that extent. After all, it's something I can just ignore. However, Alex directly carried out one harassment after another against me. For instance, when my senior, Michael, invited me to dinner after work. The moment I stood up to leave the office, Alex called out to me. "Hey, Brian, where do you think you're going?" "I'm leaving because work is done." "What? Are you an idiot? Think about the company as a whole, not just yourself." Alex said this and let out an exaggerated sigh as if to show off. I couldn't grasp the intent behind his words and was left bewildered. "I've still got work left. You should have sensed that and acted accordingly." Alex grabbed a stack of documents on his desk and showed them to me. It was troubling to hear that, and it wasn't my responsibility, but... "You were invited to dinner by Michael, right? I heard you talking about it earlier." "So what if I was?" It's not so what? As your superior, I have work left, so you, as my subordinate, should take the initiative to take it on. But that's... I have a date with a girl I met on a dating app later. Alex said this and pushed the stack of documents onto me. The generous me will even contact Michael to cancel for you. Wait a minute, isn't this a bit too one-sided? That's how it is in a company. Alex said this and slammed my desk hard. The remaining people in the department were startled by the noise. At the edge of whether I can get a girlfriend or not, don't you dare go off to dinner with a colleague all carefree. Though I wanted to say it wasn't my business, I couldn't because of my position and ended up staying at work, explaining the situation to Michael. Pray that I can get a girlfriend. Alex said this with a malicious smile. Like this, Alex's insidious harassment against me continued as if it were a part of daily life. He would forcefully make it my responsibility for almost unrelated matters and lash out at me. And when he did, it was always in front of other employees. Just because you're a bit good at your job, your frivolous attitude is spreading around. It was an accusation that could not be more false. I don't recall ever getting frivolous, and there's no one around me who's affected. It was clear he just wanted to embarrass me. For Alex, who has the goal of looking down on others, whether it's unreasonable or not doesn't matter. Though he's in a supervisory position, he was nothing but a hindrance to the work. The harassment continued daily, but it wasn't particularly upsetting. Because I have many trustworthy colleagues. I even think it's a waste to expend real energy on anger towards someone like Alex. Despite the interference from his harassment, I could still achieve results at work. Each time, Alex would explode with anger towards me, but I ignored it. Then one day, it was decided that we would go to France for a company trip. It seemed like it was the first time abroad for a few people, and the workplace was excited. However, there was one slight worry. The person entrusted with the flight reservation was Alex. Well, surely even he wouldn't harass someone during a company trip. That's what I thought, but my worries were confirmed. On the day of the trip, I woke up earlier than planned. It seems I was looking forward to going to France more than I thought. I couldn't sleep the night before, just like a grade schooler excited about a field trip. Holding my travel bag, I headed to the airport with high spirits. Upon arriving at the meeting spot, I greeted my colleagues. Everyone was excited, and it made me happy to feel their excitement. I'm going to distribute the tickets shortly, so make sure you don't lose them. Alex started handing out the tickets one by one. My colleagues and senior supervisors were completing their boarding procedures one after the other. I waited for my turn with excitement. However, Alex was not giving me my ticket. Eventually, all the other employees had completed their boarding procedures, leaving me behind. Was this harassment intended to make me feel anxious? As I was wondering this, Alex pointed at me with a sneer. "What are you still doing here? You're not invited, so get lost." I was at a loss for words, not understanding his intention. I can't understand what's going on at all. Why am I being told to go home when I've just arrived at the meeting place and we're about to depart? I glared at Alex, unable to accept the situation. "You weren't worth the ticket, so I didn't get one for you." Wait a minute, are you saying I'm being left behind? Rather, you should be grateful that you can see me off. There is nothing to appreciate towards Alex in this situation. Alex seemed pleased, as if my confusion was the greatest entertainment in the world. That's how it is, so I'm off to enjoy France. Bye. Alex, wait. Ignoring my call, Alex disappeared towards the boarding gate. I was the only one left at the meeting place. I never imagined I would be subjected to harassment even on a company trip. Perhaps I should have been more careful about that. Alex is a man who do anything mean when it comes to making me feel miserable. I should have anticipated something like this. I regretted my lack of foresight. I couldn't just give up and go home. Actually, I had an unavoidable matter to attend to in France. Therefore, I had no choice but to secure a flight ticket on my own. I chased after the employees who had gone ahead and flew to France. Due to the time it took to secure a ticket on my own, I missed the first day's itinerary of the company trip. On the other hand, Alex, the organizer, arrived at the destination's luxury hotel with the employees. A social gathering was to be held at one of the local letting accommodation facilities. As organizer, Alex led the employees to check-in. Hearing that the hotel staff could speak English, Alex approached with confidence. I had a reservation under Alex. To which the hotel staff replied unexpectedly, "Where is the owner?" "The owner? What are you talking about?" Alex was confused by the sudden mention of the owner. Then, the hotel staff made a shocking statement. "If the owner is not present, the accommodation fee will be $50,000. What's that about? That's way too expensive." Shocked by the unexpected high accommodation cost, Alex protested to the hotel staff. However, no matter how much he appealed, the hotel staff wouldn't nod in agreement. The employees waiting behind him were puzzled, wondering what was going on. As Alex turned pale, not knowing what to do, I finally arrived at the hotel. My late arrival seemed less significant compared to the issue of the accommodation cost. I spoke to the hotel staff in French, who had been talking with Alex. The staff responded to me in French with a pleasant smile. Alex couldn't understand a word of what the hotel staff and I were talking. Then, the hotel staff addressed Alex in English. "We will not charge you for the accommodation. Please, this way." This situation took a 180-degree turn from what was said earlier, leaving Alex dumbfounded. It was unclear what happened, but if we didn't have to pay, it was a stroke of luck. Despite the unexpected trouble, Alex decided not to dwell on it. Thus, I made it in time for the social gathering and successfully joined everyone from the company. My colleagues were happy to see me, having arrived late. Of course, Alex was the exception. Having resolved the earlier trouble with the hotel staff, he returned to his usual condescending attitude. "Why is the person who was supposed to see us off here? I bought a ticket." You came here on your own." "I had no choice since you didn't arrange one for me, right?" "Why would I arrange a ticket for someone like you? Don't get cocky." I had to suppress the urge to tell him who was really being cocky. How long will this person continue with such childish behavior? I mean, it's pretty bold of you to show up here, aren't you embarrassed? Alex said this, seeking agreement from the other employees. Everyone looked uncomfortable. Alex was the only one who didn't notice. There's nothing embarrassing about being part of this company. You must have been so full of yourself, thinking you'd get a ticket. Shame on you. Shame on me. I wanted to throw those words right back at him. You wouldn't want to show incompetence to the next company president, would you? Yes, this social gathering was about to unveil a big event. The announcement of the company's next president. Man, I can't wait to see what kind of person the new president is. Alex seemed quite drunk, slurring his words. He was always loud, but today was especially unbearable. I'll get on great terms with the next president and get promoted. It was unclear where such confidence came from. Tired of responding, I moved away from Alex. After some time of mingling, the main event was about to start. James, current president, began his speech. This was the lead-up to the announcement of the new president. James's speech was serious but interspersed with just the right amount of humor. Everyone in the room was looking forward to the announcement of the new president. After finishing his speech, James took a deep breath and began to speak. "The new president will be him." With those words, the lights in the room were dimmed. The sudden darkness stirred the crowd, but then a spotlight was turned on. "It's you, Brian." Yes, the spotlight was on no one else but me. I confidently stood up and made my way to the stage. Alex's previously cocky demeanor had vanished. He turned ghostly pale, with his mouth hanging open. No wonder he was surprised. He could never have imagined that the new president would be a younger subordinate like me. Then, James revealed even more surprising facts to Alex. Brian is also the owner of this hotel and a very capable businessman. What? The news of my becoming the next president was shocking enough, but this revelation sent an even bigger shockwave through the room. Indeed, the owner that the hotel staff had asked Alex about earlier was me. Let me explain how I came to be chosen as the new president. I am currently the owner of this hotel, but it was previously owned by my father. I grew up as the son of a luxury hotel owner, living a life without any difficulties. James, who often stayed at our hotel, became personally acquainted with my father and developed a relationship over time. James became personally close with my father, building a rapport over time. Amidst this, my father introduced me to James. He recommended me as a successor to James, who was in search of one. It seems my father had long recognized my potential as a businessman. Afterward, I succeeded my father as the owner of the hotel. Around that time, I received an invitation from James to join our company. And surprisingly, he wanted to entrust me with the position of president right away. Receiving an offer from James of the current company filled me with gratitude. However, I couldn't become the president without properly understanding the company. With that in mind, I made a suggestion. I would like to start as an ordinary employee first. Some might find it strange to refuse a prepared seat as president. But given my nature, it would feel uncomfortable to be in a high position without understanding the company. Considering this, I decided to work as an ordinary employee for a while. Despite the unexpected proposal, James readily agreed. Disliking special treatment, I joined the company without revealing to the other employees that I was the next president. Now, James had asked me to take over as his successor. I had more than enough understanding of the company's philosophy and workplace atmosphere. From an ordinary employee to the next president might seem like an abnormal promotion to others. In the buzzing venue, I took the microphone from James. "I am Brian, newly appointed as president." My colleagues and seniors, who had respected me, applauded with surprised expressions. The only one who remained motionless was Alex. Standing still as if time had stopped, with his mouth wide open. I continued speaking while looking at Alex's face. "I have been subjected to various harassments by my superior, Alex." Yeah. He must not have expected his name to be mentioned. Alex finally showed a reaction. Unperturbed, I went on to reveal all the mistreatment Alex had subjected me to. Being forced to take on work unfairly, being yelled at for irrational reasons, and how he deliberately didn't secure a ticket for me to go to France this time. Many in the room were aware of these incidents. However, the information hadn't reached the upper management, and some were surprised to hear about these events. After giving a thorough explanation, I concluded with my final words. I aim to make this a company where no one suffers from such experiences. A few seconds after I spoke, thunderous applause filled the venue. Everyone clapping cast cold glances at Alex. No, but that was. Stammering, Alex tried to come up with an excuse. However, there was no one in the venue willing to take his side. Alex, if you have any rebuttals, please feel free to speak up. Well, that was just a bit of fun, sort of. Are you saying it was all just pranks or play? No, I wouldn't go that far, but... I was looking straight at Alex, but he couldn't meet my gaze and his eyes wandered. You mentioned earlier about getting on good terms with the new president for a promotion. Were you serious? That was a joke, kind of. I'd like to know on what basis you think you can build a friendly relationship with me after all the harassment. Well, you know, life is unpredictable. Alex continued with excuses that didn't hold up, sweating profusely. I simply glared at him in silence as he spoke. Initially, Alex continued with nonsensical excuses, but gradually, he began to speak less and less. Eventually, Alex lost all his words and fell into a state of panic. Suddenly, he crouched down, holding his head, and then stood up abruptly. Wow! With a strange yell, Alex ran out of the venue. He couldn't bear the situation and atmosphere any longer. Everyone in the venue was stunned, but it only took about 5 seconds to return to the initial state. The venue became lively again as if Alex had never existed. Then, James took the microphone and offered a toast. It was for me, the incoming president. There was no need to worry about someone like Alex anymore. Not just me, but everyone else must have felt the same. That day, I received more congratulations than ever in my life. I was made to drink so much beer that I was thoroughly drunk and barely remembered anything. The fact that everyone around me was happy about my appointment as president made me happy. I am aware that I am too young to be a president. Even so, I have confidence that I have put in as much effort as anyone else. Seeing my colleagues celebrating as if it were their own achievement, I was sure that my efforts were not in vain. Despite the harassment from Alex, the trip to France ended up being a great success. After returning home, I would soon start my duties as the new president. I was excited about the challenges of the new days ahead. The excitement outweighed the anxiety. The diligent effort I had continued to put in gave me unwavering confidence. Now, let's talk about what happened to Alex after he ran out of the venue. Ultimately, he never showed up at the company again. He fled back alone and sent in his resignation to the company. He supposedly job hunted after quitting, but he failed every interview. His inherently high pride, which he could never let go, caused him to take a high-handed attitude during interviews. The only job he finally landed was a part-time job at a convenience store. However, Alex, who always pushed work onto others, was inefficient and made constant mistakes. Unable to endure being scolded by high school part-timers, he quit in a hurry. Unable to pay his rent, he was eventually evicted from his apartment. According to a subordinate, Alex was spotted living in a cardboard house in a park. When our eyes met, he approached with incredible speed, clinging and pleading, "Please, ask Brian. Ask President Sanders to hire me back." I had no intention whatsoever of rehiring someone who had caused so much harassment. Hearing this story, I couldn't help but be astounded. With Alex gone, the workplace atmosphere improved significantly. I had wanted to create a company where no one suffers from harassment, and now, there's no one here who would do such a thing. The fact that I didn't have to take Alex's matter too seriously was thanks to the support of my colleagues at the company. Such connections are a treasure that money can't buy. I vowed to cherish human relationships even more and become a president who can empathize with others' feelings. Although I take pride in my efforts, I am still a novice president. Without becoming arrogant, I intend to continue to strive for improvement.
I'll help her with the part she's stuck on. Like this? When she types on the keyboard, the program starts as expected. Exactly. I snap my fingers in excitement. All right. Let's move on to the next. Suddenly, her hand touches mine. I haven't asked your name yet. Startled by her sudden question, I get flustered. Oh, me? As I try to evade the question, she was. My name is John. I'm 34 years old. I was going through visitor procedures at the reception of a manufacturing company's headquarters. The receptionist seems to be informed and looks at me with a knowing glance. Escaping that gaze, I quickly finish the procedures and head to the CEO's office via the elevator. After talking with President Michaels, I was given permission to look around the floors, so I decided to casually explore each one. Everyone looks my way, but because I'm wearing a mask due to allergies. But I have on a visitor badge, so they only give me a quick glance. Thinking I'm someone's guest. Everyone is working seriously. One department is smoothly communicating, chatting amicably while still working efficiently. Another department seems busy and focused, working intensely on their computers. I mentally note the characteristics of each department. On the third floor, I felt a sense of unease for the first time since coming to this company. This department was the type to work intensely on their computers. The sign read IT department. They must handle the company's system-related tasks here. Among those silently working on their computers, the source of my unease was near the window. I approached and spoke to the person there. What are you doing? The woman I spoke to flinched and turned to face me. She was a petite woman. I'm making flowers out of paper. As she said that, she glanced behind her. I also looked in the direction she indicated. There was a sign with the company's name on it. We have an event soon to promote our products to clients. The sign is plain, so I thought I'd decorate it to make it more eye-catching. I understood what she was doing. But my unease remained. Are you doing this alone? It would be faster with a few people. To avoid disrupting the tense atmosphere, I asked her quietly. She looked troubled. I don't have any work I can do right now, she said, dejectedly. I frowned. Glancing at her name badge, I saw it read IT Department, Sarah Johnson. While the rest of the IT team seemed busy on their computers, why did she have no work? Seeing my silence, she explained further. I transferred here from a regional branch, but the programming language used here is different, and with the event coming up, there's no time to teach me. It was clear that we should avoid idle chatter during work hours. She seemed to understand that too, keeping her explanation brief, but I got the gist of it. What language do you use here? Her answer reassured me. In that case, I can help. How about I teach you after work? At my suggestion, she vigorously shook her head. No way. I can't impose on someone from another company like that. She seemed to have misunderstood because I was wearing a visitor badge. Oh, no, I'm actually from this company. I just returned from a branch office and I'm on a week's leave. I came to the office today for some paperwork. There's no problem with me teaching a colleague, right? I said this with a smile, though I wasn't sure it was visible through my mask. She looked down and shook her head. No, it would be a burden, and during your break. I hesitated, thinking it might seem too pushy, but I couldn't leave someone in need. I'm enjoying my time off during the day, so I'm free at night. But if you don't need help, that's fine. Though it looks like you really want to work. She looked up at me, startled. Then, with trembling lips, she managed to say, as long as it's not too much trouble. I would appreciate it. Her hesitant reply showed she was still unsure. I smiled gently and nodded. All right, after work, do you know the community center nearby? There's a study room there. Her eyes widened at my suggestion. Since she didn't say anything, I continued. Do you know the place? I'll be there reading for the rest of the day, so if you want to learn, come by after work. With that, I left the floor. It hasn't changed much, or maybe it's gotten a bit older? I stood in front of the community center, lost in thought. I had spent a lot of time here since I was a student. It had a large library and study rooms divided into private cubicles, with rooms for group study next door. Though you weren't supposed to be loud, small conversations for teaching were fine, making it a user-friendly place with quite a few regulars. During this time of year, just after the start of the new school term, the study rooms weren't crowded. Before exams, it would get so busy that finding a seat was a challenge. Exam season. I felt a pang of nostalgia. Back in college, I once tutored a middle school girl. It was only a few sessions, but I remember how fun it felt, like being a teacher. While she worked on problems, I mostly saw the top of her head since she was hunched over her notebook. I remember how amusing it was to see her tearful face when she couldn't solve something, and her bright smile when she succeeded. She kind of reminds me of that girl today. The woman's name was Sarah. The expression on her face as she made those decorative flowers reminded me of that middle school girl. Her petite stature was also similar. Feeling nostalgic, I forgot about reading and sat idly, reminiscing in a corner of the community center. I'm not sure how long I was lost in thought. The door opened, and a familiar figure in a uniform hurried in. "Sarah?" When I called out, she looked around and smiled when she found me. Her quickly changing expressions were charming. We moved to the study room for group learning, and she bowed slightly. "Nice to meet you again. I'm Sarah. Thank you for helping me." I nodded with a smile as she opened her laptop and pulled out a stack of reference books from her bag. I had picked out some books in the library, but they didn't seem necessary. "You're really working hard on your own." She looked troubled at this. "Self-study has its limits. I thought it would be like this. There are many programming languages in the world. Broadly speaking, they can be divided into two categories: compiled languages and scripting languages. Compiled languages execute programs faster but are more complex. You could say they're machine-friendly. In contrast, scripting languages are easier for people to understand but aren't as fast." Since she primarily used scripting languages, the compiled language used by our company's IT department was completely unfamiliar to her. I feel so pathetic. I was so excited about this transfer to the headquarters. "But it's like going to France with just a basic A1 level DLF certificate," she said. I'd almost laughed at the analogy. But I responded, "No, scripting languages are respectable programming languages. It's not like having an DLF certificate. It's more like being fluent in Japanese or Chinese but struggling in France." When I gave this comparison, Sarah laughed. "Still, you're amazing, Sarah. I heard you improved the efficiency of the main system at the factory with a scripting language. And that system got adopted at other factories too." As I said this, she furrowed her brows. "Did I tell you the details of why I was transferred to the headquarters?" Her question made me a bit nervous. "Oh? No, I just guessed that since you transferred from a branch to the headquarters IT department, you must have done something impressive." My awkward response only made her more suspicious. Panicking, I reached for her reference book. "Well, let's get started. Where are you stuck?" She still looked skeptical but shifted her focus to the book. She had reference books ranging from beginner to advanced levels, but she had already mastered the basics on her own. She seemed to be stuck somewhere in the intermediate section, so I began to help her with the troublesome parts. So like this?" When she typed on the keyboard, the program ran as expected. "Exactly." I snapped my fingers in excitement. "All right. Let's move on to the next." Just as I was about to move on to the next section, she touched my hand. I looked at her in surprise, and she was wide-eyed. "I haven't asked your name yet." Startled by her sudden question, I became flustered. "Oh, me? I'm John. Nice to meet you." Before I could continue, she shook her head vigorously. Seeing my confusion, she whispered softly, "John Michaels, right?" I was taken aback as she said this, my eyes widening in response. She looked at me with teary eyes. You once helped me with my studies here." The moment she said that, I vividly recalled the middle school girl I had been thinking about earlier. When I was in college, I was almost about to graduate and was preparing for my next step. It was a path I didn't want to take. I had always wanted to be a teacher. However, due to family circumstances, my future was already decided. Sighing, I was absent-mindedly reading a book with the necessary knowledge for my future job in the study room. Then, I heard the sound of someone sniffling next to me. Being allergic myself, I thought it might be allergies, but it seemed different. Pretending to go to the restroom, I peeked and saw a girl in a uniform slumped over her desk. "What's wrong?" I was surprised but spoke to her softly. She slowly lifted her head and turned a tear-streaked face toward me. Her expression was so distraught that I couldn't laugh. "I don't get it." There was a math workbook open on the desk. It seemed she was preparing for her high school entrance exams. My mouth moved on its own. "Would you like me to help?" She widened her tear-filled eyes. "Eh?" I scratched my head. "If you want, I can teach you. I think I can handle middle school math." She made a very skeptical face. "Does that mean this is so simple for you? Is math going to get even harder?" I laughed at her worrying about the future when she was struggling with the present problem. "Let's start with solving this problem first." But she hesitated. "But, you came here to study too, right?" "I don't want to take up your time." I chuckled at being considered by a middle schooler. "It's fine. I can do this anytime. You seem to need help right now." At my words, she nodded so quickly it made me laugh again. "After that, you helped me a few more times, and I managed to pass my exams and even went into a science path." I connected the face of the middle school girl I remembered with Sarah's face now. Indeed, they were the same person. "Even with your mask on, there was something familiar about you." It was an unforgettable memory for me. The way you snapped your fingers when I understood something that confirmed it for me. As she smiled gently, my face grew warm. "But, how did you know my name? We didn't exchange names back then, did we?" She laughed softly. "And then? Let's step outside for a moment. It's hard to concentrate on studying now." We were the only ones in the study room. But she was right, it didn't feel like the right atmosphere for studying anymore. We moved to the park next to the community center and sat on a bench. The breeze felt pleasant. "As for how I knew your name, don't think I'm weird, okay? Back then, the book you had with you had your name on it. I memorized it and later wrote it down in my notebook. John Michaels." Hearing her formally say my name made my heart skip a beat. "I always wanted to thank you. After our last meeting before my exams, I never saw you again. Even after I entered high school and then college. I occasionally came to this community center hoping to see you, but we never crossed paths. So, thank you very much for back then." Her deep gratitude made me flustered. "Oh no, I'm just glad you passed. Sorry for disappearing. After that, I got a job overseas." She nodded quietly at my explanation. "Sorry if this is presumptuous, but the name Michaels, that's the same as our company's CEO's surname, could it be?" Seeing her struggle to ask, I decided to come clean. "Yes, I'm the next in line to be CEO." She gasped a little but then smiled warmly. I knew it. All my hard work wasn't in vain. I didn't understand what she meant and looked puzzled. I was surprised to hear the name Michaels at the induction ceremony. It's not a common name. So I thought it must be related to the person who helped me at the library. I was assigned to a branch factory. But I always wanted to meet you again and work at the headquarters someday. It may seem trivial, but that was my motivation. My heart was pounding loudly. But no matter how much I checked the company newsletter or executive lists, I couldn't find your name. I scratched my head at her words. "I'm still just an employee." I wanted it that way. Sarah tilted her head in confusion. "But, you knew about why I got transferred to the headquarters because you're the next CEO, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I saw your work. It was impressive. It's a bit embarrassing to know you did all that to meet me again." I laughed lightly. "And I've come this far, encouraged by your words." She tilted her head further, frowning slightly. Her puzzled expression made me laugh again. When I was in college, teaching middle school Sarah math, I was also feeling uncertain about my own future. My grandfather had forged his own path, and my father was merely following in his footsteps. I wondered if I was destined to follow the same path as my father. One day, I couldn't help but ask her, "What do you think about a life where you just follow the path laid out for you?" She looked puzzled at the question. Of course, she would. She was still a middle schooler, after all. I felt foolish for asking such a question to a child. Sorry, never mind. Forget I asked. I tried to brush it off. But then she said, just riding on a track could be boring, but. I leaned forward, curious about what she'd say next. If you're the one driving, it can be fun. Her unexpected words made me ask further. Even if you can't choose the destination yourself? She pondered for a moment before smiling. But you can choose how fast you go and when you arrive, right? You can change that as much as you want. It felt like a light shone on me. And someday, you might be able to stop the train and add more tracks yourself, right? I had never thought of it that way. Because I'm starting to like math thanks to you. I thought I'd never be able to handle science, but this feels like adding more tracks, right? Her bright smile almost brought me to tears. Yes, even if you're on a predetermined path, you can still drive it yourself. The final destination is set as CEO. However, I can choose the journey. With that realization, I negotiated with my father, the CEO, and my grandfather, the chairman, to train at a new factory we were establishing in Southeast Asia. Not only did I intend to train, but I also aimed to make that new factory one of the top factories in our company. And so, 12 years later, I returned to the States, having achieved top levels of production and quality at the Southeast Asia factory. Hearing my story, Sarah blushed deeply. Middle school me, how embarrassing. Did I really say that? I chuckled. Don't call it embarrassing. Those words have been precious to me. When I said that jokingly, she looked startled. Oh, right, I'm sorry. She bowed slightly, and I thought she was such a good person. Without thinking, the words slipped out. I think I like you, Sarah. It had only been a few minutes since we reunited. I had no idea what I was saying. She looked just as shocked. What? I carefully chose my words. We haven't seen each other in a long time, but we met before. You were so earnest and adorable as a middle schooler, and now, seeing you work so hard to decorate a sign and study programming even when you don't have a job to do. Oh, sorry. I didn't even ask if you have a boyfriend. I spoke quickly, feeling a bit embarrassed. I don't have a boyfriend, but what about you, John? Do you have someone? You seem quite experienced with women. I was surprised and shook my head. What? No way. I didn't even have a girlfriend while I was working overseas. Admitting this made me feel a bit pathetic, but it was the truth. But, do you normally confess so quickly? She gave me a skeptical look, and I scratched my head. Honestly, I'm surprised myself. I might be getting carried away. I just never thought I'd see you again. The girl who was nearly in tears while I taught her. At my words, she pouted. That nearly in tears part is unnecessary. She pursed her lips but glanced at me. I've never been able to forget you either. I wanted to see you again, but you're the next CEO, right? And I'm just. Before she could finish, I interjected softly. Please don't call me that. She looked at me, eyes wide in surprise. I'm running on a predetermined track, but I'm doing it as an employee by my own choice. While my end goal is to become CEO, I want to experience love and interactions as a regular person, not as the CEO. I don't want you to be fixated on my title as CEO. I want you to see me for who I am. Hearing this, she apologized again. I'm sorry. I just thought someone like me wouldn't be enough, but I've always had feelings for you, the person who kindly taught me math. So I'm happy. Yes. She remembered me and kept striving. I hesitantly spread my arms. So, can we be together? She blushed slightly but stepped into my arms. Yes. I always wanted to see you again. Thank you for making math fun back then. With her in my arms, I thanked her too. Thank you. I actually wanted to be a teacher. For that short time, I got to be a teacher and have a lovely student, which made me happy. As I hugged her tightly, she chuckled. I still need you to teach me about programming languages. She looked up at me and said, Teacher, I'm counting on you. I couldn't help but hug her even tighter. 1 month later, I introduced Sarah to my family. She thought it was too soon, but there was no choice. An arranged marriage had been planned for me. My retired grandfather had arranged it immediately after my return, and I nearly fainted when my mother told me. "We're not deeply involved yet. But I'm sure of one thing. I will marry Sarah. In just 1 month, I've grown to love her more and more. She's already become irreplaceable to me. But my grandfather is intimidating. Honestly, he's quite scary. Still, I have my own will. Sarah, completely tense, is sitting next to me. I will protect her and stand by my own resolve." With that determination, I faced my father and grandfather. "I don't approve it." My grandfather's first words were blunt. "The woman I've chosen for you is from a distinguished family. An ordinary girl doesn't match up. I'll find someone suitable to support you." I looked straight ahead. I don't want to marry someone just because we're a good match. I don't need someone to support me. I want to marry someone we can mutually respect. My grandfather snorted. "Respect? Then tell me 100 things you respect about this girl." I widened my eyes and looked at Sarah. "Well, she's kind, hardworking, her crying face, her determination to create work where there is none." I continued listing what I respected about her. At some point, Sarah flinched, but I ignored it and kept going. My grandfather's eyes widened, and he eventually stopped me. "That's enough. Enough. I don't want to hear it anymore." He frowned, but my father was trying to hold back his laughter. I smiled wryly. When I was in college, I was still uncertain. I thought about running away from this house and the future of becoming the next president many times. My words made my grandfather's eyes widen. But, during those times, Sarah's words saved me. "Even if you're on a set path, you can steer it with your own will." As she said. I went to a factory in Southeast Asia and learned how to manage the factory, how to communicate, the basics of management, investment in equipment. I learned a lot and have been running towards becoming the president in my own way. Without meeting her, even if I didn't run away, I think I would have spent my days idly. For some reason, Sarah's eyes widened at my words. "That's not true. Even without my words, you would have realized something and worked hard on your own." My words were just a trigger. She spoke passionately and then took a deep breath. "But I also want to stay with you, who always looks forward no matter the situation. I don't just want to support you. I want to run on the track together with you." Looking directly at my grandfather, Sarah appeared divine. My grandfather was silent for a while but then suddenly stood up and left the room. When Sarah and I exchanged glances, my father smiled wryly. "He probably sensed your growth." I did too. His unexpected words made my eyes widen. The arranged marriage talks haven't progressed at all, so I'll put a stop to them. "I married your mother through an arranged marriage. And we're happy." His words made me a little flustered. "No, it's not that arranged marriages are bad." As I panicked, my father laughed. "I know. But, you seem to be using me as a cautionary example. Please, also see the good points?" Hearing that, I felt a bit ashamed of myself. My father is a gentle and kind person who runs straight on the track laid out for him without complaint. Now, I understand how difficult that life was and how much he had to suppress himself. I respect you for disciplining yourself and running straight on the track. It was embarrassing, and I couldn't look him in the eye when I said it, but he smiled gently. And then, a few years later, Sarah and I got married. At the same time, I took over as CEO. For a while, my father will serve as chairman and support me. After consulting with him, I began to focus on the personnel restructuring that had been in progress for several years. When I returned to the US and toured the office, I noticed a stark difference between departments that were overworked and those that were relaxed. I decided to allocate more staff to the overworked departments to give them some breathing room. By doing this, I believe job satisfaction and interpersonal harmony will improve. I also want to ensure that new employees, like Sarah once was, aren't left overwhelmed and neglected. Although I wanted to enjoy newlywed life for a while, Sarah soon became pregnant. It's a boy. I felt a bit of a dark cloud. This child already has a predetermined path. How will he feel about such a life? Will he think he shouldn't have been born? Sensing my anxiety, Sarah sat next to me. It'll be okay. He will find his own answers. Besides, there's no need to insist on hereditary succession, right? She was right. My grandfather would disagree, but in today's world, we need to be flexible to keep up with the times. For now, my priority is to make it easier and more fulfilling for our employees to work. And to ensure that Sarah and our child are happy. I want to run on this track with all my might in my own way. Noticing something unusual about our atmosphere, nearly 30 classmates had gathered around us. Come to think of it, I haven't told you which company I work for yet. It's a big company, so I'm sure you know it, too, he said. My classmate Tom made a grand introduction, telling Emily, who was with me, the name of the company he works for. With about 30 classmates listening, he might have felt more confident. After talking loudly about himself, he suddenly turned to me and called me out. John, were you surprised to hear my company's name? If you're jealous, you should start job hunting and work for a better company. His rant attracted even more people. Watching this scene, I felt a sense of nostalgia. I remembered how, back in middle school, everyone would gather to protect Emily from Tom whenever he teased her. Then they tried to calm him down. My name is John, a single man in my 40s. I've never been good at studying, but I always preferred creating things on my own rather than following orders. Even though this could have made me seem selfish, I was fortunate to have classmates who never treated me as a troublemaker. On the contrary, I was often chosen to be the captain of the club or class representative, so people naturally looked to me as a leader. Although I didn't like being ordered around, I didn't enjoy giving orders either. So, talking things through with everyone and moving forward in a way that satisfied us all seemed to work well. I don't have any major regrets in my life and enjoyed my time in high school and college. Still, if I had to pick the most fulfilling time, it would be middle school. Today is a middle school reunion with those old friends. It's been 20 years since we last met when we were 20. Feeling excited, I headed to the hotel hosting the event. Hey, long time no see. You all haven't changed. I thought I arrived a bit early, but it seemed everyone else was already there. Like me, they must have been looking forward to today. While catching up with some classmates nearby, a cheerful voice came from behind. Looks like you're having fun. Talking about work? I turned around to see a familiar face. Dressed in a flashy suit with a luxurious scarf was Tom. His phone had an oddly childish charm hanging from it. At first, I didn't recognize him, but then I saw the distinctive mole by his eye and knew it was Tom. We had been chatting lively, but a few people made sour faces and left when they saw him. Tom, I didn't recognize you. You're all dressed up in that fancy suit. You guys haven't changed. Maybe you should pay more attention to your appearance. He mocked, looking us up and down. Well, the clothes you wear reflect who you are. You're probably not doing great jobs or making much money. Having a meal at a place like this must be a big expense for you. Ignoring the awkwardness around him, Tom continued his snide remarks. I could only manage a wry smile, but Tom shifted the conversation to work. By the way, you were talking about work earlier, right? What do you all do? Without waiting for answers, Tom started pointing at each person. You're really tanned, so you must be in construction. And you weren't bright, so you probably work in farming. You even smell a bit. You should take care of that. Annoyed by his disrespectful comments, I retorted. Hey, that's pretty rude. There's no such thing as a lowly job. Everyone's work is what keeps society going. You should watch your words. I couldn't hide my irritation and ended up speaking harshly. Feeling bad for dampening the reunion mood, I noticed Tom didn't seem to care at all. Why so serious? Are you doing manual labor too, John? You always acted like a big shot, but you were never that smart. He laughed, walking over to the group of women. Who does he think he is? Still as obnoxious as ever, some around me muttered. Tom had always disrupted the group's harmony, unable to read the room and eager to stand out. I guess some things never change. I shifted my focus and started reminiscing with my classmates. As the reunion began, the atmosphere grew lively, helped along by the alcohol. Back in middle school, communicating honestly with girls was tough because of puberty, but now it was nice to see we could all interact maturely. sharing thoughts and impressions we couldn't express back then, and admitting we wanted to be closer, made for a wonderful time. When I heard my name, I turned to see Emily calling me. Emily. It's been a while. My voice got louder because Emily was actually my first crush. I wasn't the only one who found her attractive. She was the center of attention for many boys back then. Even after all these years, she looked remarkably youthful for someone in her 40s, with a mature elegance that made her even more captivating. "You haven't changed at all, John," she said. "Are you saying I haven't grown since middle school?" As we exchanged lighthearted banter, I felt my heart race. My eyes were drawn to her hands, and I noticed she wasn't wearing a ring. So, is she still single? Not that I wanted to start dating her now, but knowing she was married would have stung. Even though it shouldn't matter to me now, I felt a strange relief seeing no ring, only to immediately dismiss my thoughts. Many married people don't wear rings. Given how attractive she is, she must have a wonderful husband and a lovely family. I wanted to ask about her husband but felt it was too intrusive. However, Emily asked directly, "Aren't you married?" I mistakenly thought she was interested in my marital status. Like her, I wasn't wearing a wedding ring. I quickly realized my silly assumption. Her question seemed purely polite, with no deeper meaning. Feeling a bit despondent, I replied, "No, I'm not. You might remember, I never had a girlfriend in middle school. Everyone had bad taste." I tried to sound humorous, smiling at her. Despite what I said, I wasn't unpopular with girls. Though I never had a girlfriend, a few girls did ask to go out. I never dated anyone because I genuinely loved Emily. Even seeing my friends with their girlfriends, I couldn't bring myself to date someone I didn't love. "Maybe you were popular back then, but it was like how fast runners are popular in elementary school," she joked. Though said in jest, being compared to an elementary school crush was a bit disheartening. Sure, young love often revolved around looks, athletic ability, and social status. Yet, hearing this from still charming Emily made me feel somewhat rejected. Perhaps my feelings showed on my face. Emily quickly backtracked. "You didn't take that seriously, did you?" "Just joking." "Same as before, you were so earnest." Whether she meant it or not, her reassurance eased my mind. As we continued chatting over our meal, Tom interrupted again. "Emily. There you are. Hanging out with John must be boring. Come chat with me." Tom, the annoying guy, had arrived. He motioned for me to leave. Though I enjoyed talking with Emily, I figured she'd rather socialize with others, even if it was someone like Tom. Glancing at Emily, I saw her looking troubled. "John, go away. Aren't you starving? Go fill up while you can." Tom sneered, pushing me aside to sit next to Emily. She looked mildly annoyed but listened to him anyway. "I recently got promoted to management. Top guys always rise fast. It's just a different level of competence from everyone here," he boasted to Emily, who responded with polite nods. I watch and wait for the right moment to step in and help with the childish communication. Noticing the unusual atmosphere between the two, nearly 30 classmates had gathered around. "By the way, I haven't told you what company I work for yet, have I?" "It's a major company, so I'm sure you know it, Emily." Tom made a big deal of announcing the name of his company. Hearing the name, Emily looked at me in surprise. Tom must have known I was nearby. With about 30 classmates listening, Tom seemed to grow more confident. Raising his voice, Tom started talking about himself. He bragged about his high salary, the prestigious company he worked for, and how insignificant the rest of us were. Completely ignoring the worsening atmosphere. Then he turned to me and called me out directly. "John, were you surprised to hear the name of my company? If you're jealous, why don't you start job hunting and get a better job?" Tom's ranting drew even more people. Watching this scene made me feel nostalgic. I remembered how in middle school, everyone would gather to protect Emily whenever Tom tried to bother her. And they started to speak up against Tom. There he goes again, trying to feel superior. "Yeah, he cornered me about my job and salary earlier too. Why is he picking a fight with John, anyway?" Their complaints reached Tom's ears. Annoyed, he turned to me with a threatening attitude. People's worth is determined by the company they work for and how much they get paid. You can't stay on top forever just because you were cool in middle school. Hearing Tom's absurd statements made me feel embarrassed for him. He needed to be put in his place. So, which branch do you work at? I'm starting to worry about your competence. What? What are you trying to say? While Tom looked puzzled, our classmates laughed at him. I wasn't boasting, but we had been sharing our work and family situations, so they understood the point of my question. Tom looked ridiculous, and it was hard not to laugh. Why does it matter which branch? It doesn't make someone better if they work at the headquarters. What matters is the company you're in. Then Tom suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, John, are you trying to claim that it doesn't matter what job you have, but you care about being at the headquarters?" Pathetic. His misguided remark caused a burst of laughter. Realizing something was off, but still not fully grasping the situation, I decided to clarify for him. It's not that the headquarters is superior. I respect those at the branches who contribute to the overall success. But I brought him back to reality. Someone with your attitude could tarnish the company's image. One person can cause a lot of damage. I tried to explain, but Tom didn't understand. His face turned red as he snapped back at me. "You're mocking me. No one at my company would care about a complaint from someone like you." His defiance stirred up the crowd, cheering him on. Tom's outlandish comments were energizing the reunion. "Hey, you should tell him the truth before he feels even worse later," Emily whispered to me. Tom's unintended entertainment was unexpected, but Emily was right. It was time to end this. "You know, the company you work for is the one I founded." "What? You're dreaming. There's no way you started a company like that." Further explanations seemed pointless. I was about to give up, but Emily showed Tom her phone screen. "Look, it's right here. If you're so proud of your company, you should at least know the names and faces of the executives." Thanks to Emily's evidence, Tom finally understood. Turning pale, Tom weakly said, "I didn't know. I might have misspoken, but could you forgive me for old time's sake?" Tom's sudden change in attitude made the onlookers groan with annoyance. The classmates satisfied and started to disperse. "Did you change your attitude because I'm the executive of the company?" It's not about forgiveness. It's your attitude that's concerning. I get it, I really do reflect. "I'm sorry," Tom stammered. Seeing that he didn't really understand, I sighed and spoke frankly. "I'll make sure your boss knows. If you're doing your job well, there won't be any issues, but be mindful of how you express yourself. Your thoughts inevitably show in your words and actions." Standing straight and suddenly using formal language, Tom said, "I understand." Emily chuckled at his abrupt change. Though I had been enjoying my conversation with Emily, Tom had soured the mood. I was about to leave when Emily suggested, "Let's continue our talk over there." Tom frowned at this. "Are you hitting on a classmate just because you started a company? What's wrong with you?" "I just want to reminisce." Tom, who had been subdued, seemed to be feeling something different now. Thinking of how restless he was, I listened to him. "Emily, don't just approach someone because he started a company. Judge them by their character." "What are you talking about?" "I've been looking forward to seeing everyone, including John, long before I knew about his company. It's you who's been fixated on jobs and salaries since we got here." Tom could only groan in response to her valid argument. Suddenly, he held up his phone. "I've kept this the whole time. It's the strap Emily gave me. Remember?" For someone flaunting luxury brands, it seemed oddly childish for Tom to wear. However, it turned out to be a gift from Emily during middle school days. Tom, full of anticipation, watched for Emily's reaction. Emily exclaimed, "Oh," and revealed a shocking truth. "I remember. I bought that on a trip in middle school. Yeah, I was so happy. Even though you never asked to go out, if your feelings haven't changed since then." Emily cut him off to explain. Immediately, Tom's face darkened. That souvenir was actually meant to be a gift for me. Emily had intended to secretly give it to me, but mistakenly put it in Tom's desk instead. She had attached a note to the keychain, simply stating it was bought on a trip, without addressing it to anyone. Tom saw it and assumed Emily had bought it for him. She wanted to correct the mistake, but seeing Tom proudly and mistakenly thinking it was for him made her too embarrassed to say anything. Hearing Emily's explanation, Tom looked completely dejected, staring at the keychain. I felt sorry for him, but then Tom said something unbelievable. "But you don't hate me, right? If you are okay with it, I'd be willing to date you." Judging by his comment, it seemed Tom was single like me. But Emily likely already had a partner. Emily vigorously shook her head at his suggestion. "No way. I could never be happy with someone who looks down on others based on their job or lacks empathy." Her blunt response made me laugh, but Tom wasn't ready to give up. "Come on. I make good money, and you wouldn't struggle with me. Besides, it's worth a shot, right? We can figure out the details later." I almost admired Tom's self-confidence. Emily decisively crushed his ego. "Absolutely not. I don't need to try to know you're a shallow man. Besides, I've heard everything you own is on credit, right? So what if it is? I earned the money, and it shows I have creditworthiness." Emily gave a wry smile at his shallow reasoning. "I can't be with someone who lives on credit and struggles to make payments. Our views on money are too different. Find someone who shares your values or stay single." Tom finally slumped in defeat. Feeling sorry for him, I tried to be kind. "Tom, why not find someone looking for a partner instead of someone like Emily, who already has a happy family? You'll find someone good." I was trying to help him. But Tom, with tears in his eyes, retorted. "What are you talking about? Emily is single. That's not encouraging at all. Just go away." Surprised, I looked at Emily, who appeared unfazed. Her lack of denial meant she was single like me. I focused too much on work and missed the chance to get married. I thought I'd be married with kids by now, but things don't always go as planned. Same here. I never imagined I'd be working and coming home to an empty house. We both laughed at our self-deprecating remarks. Emily and I continued our enjoyable conversation, and before I knew it, Tom had disappeared. Later, I contacted the branch where Tom worked to check on his job performance. As expected, he was obsequious to his superiors but condescending to juniors, worsening the work environment. After his promotion, this behavior had become more pronounced, causing issues for the staff. I quickly reached out to HR to investigate the workplace environment and performance. Depending on the results, his branch might need a personnel review. Not knowing what would happen, I hoped for a positive outcome as I waited for the results. Eventually, his internal evaluation revealed severe issues, including compliance violations. The problems extended beyond the company, with numerous customer complaints about his conduct. He was promptly demoted, had his salary cut, and was removed from any customer-facing roles. A few months later, a follow-up revealed he had resigned and presumably moved on to a new job. I hoped he had taken the time to reflect and approach his work with a fresh mindset. But no one from our class had heard from him. The reunion sparked a regular meeting between Emily and me, and we got excited about going on a trip during the next holiday. As we parted ways after a meal, Emily expressed her thoughts. "Remember the souvenir that mistakenly ended up with Tom in middle school? I want to visit that place again." When I asked why, she said she felt sorry for her middle school self and thought choosing and buying a souvenir together now would make her younger self feel better. I was genuinely happy to hear that. That sounds great. If my middle school self knew he'd get to experience this in the future, he'd be overjoyed. As I laughed, Emily asked with a serious face, "Isn't the present you happy too?" Feeling my heart rate increase, I replied sincerely, "Of course, I'm happy." Hearing this, Emily smiled and went home. Watching her leave, I placed my hand over my rapidly beating heart.